This story is titled, After Paying My Parents' Bills for 3 years, They Cut Me Out of Their Will. So I stopped paying and flew to Thailand. My parents cut me out of their will after I spent 3 years paying their bills. So I stopped every payment cold and booked myself a trip to Thailand instead. For years, they'd called me the responsible one. I thought it was a compliment. I thought it meant they saw me as dependable, steady, the daughter they could always count on. But when I found that will, I realized they didn't even see me as part of their future. I'm a 34-year-old woman, and up until recently, I thought I came from a pretty tight-knit family. You know, middle-class suburbia, the whole American dream deal. My parents are in their early 60s. I've got a brother, Jacob, he's 36, and a younger sister, Jessica. We're not exactly the kind of family you see in Hallmark movies, where everyone hugs and cries and makes heartfelt toasts over dinner. No, we're more the type that communicates through passive-aggressive jabs about each other's life choices over dry turkey on Thanksgiving. But I always believed that, deep down, we had each other's backs when it counted. For as long as I can remember, I've been the responsible one. Good grades? Check. Worked my butt off to get through state college? Yep. Steady career in pharmaceutical research. Got it. It's not glamorous. It doesn't get me invites to fancy cocktail parties. But I pay my bills, I keep my life in order, and I don't bother anyone. Jacob, on the other hand, has always been the golden child. He went to some prestigious college, paid for, of course, by my parents. While I took out loans I'll probably still be paying off when I'm old enough for a senior discount. He got himself an MBA, landed at a flashy software startup, and makes good money, but somehow he's always too busy whenever my parents need actual help. Funny how being busy makes you conveniently unavailable. Growing up, our roles in the family were carved in stone. Jacob was the star. His football games, debate tournaments, and every little accomplishment turned into family events. Meanwhile, I once won a statewide science competition, but my parents couldn't make it because Dad had a golf game and Mom had a hair appointment. When I came home with my trophy, Mom glanced at it and said, "That's nice, honey. Did you remember to defrost the chicken for dinner?" Cool. I wasn't bitter. Not really. Okay, maybe a little bitter, like a lemon peel that's been sitting out in the sun for a week. But I let it go. I figured that's just how families work. Someone gets to be the star, and someone else gets to play the role of supporting character. Or in my case, the chicken defrosting champion. At 18, I moved out for college, worked 2 jobs, took a full load of classes, and graduated with honors. My graduation party was held at a Denny's. Breakfast. Dad spent most of the meal talking about Jacob's new condo in Chicago. Jacob wasn't even there. He was networking in Cabo. Apparently, tequila shots and beach selfies are career essentials now. After college, I worked my way up in pharmaceutical research. It's not flashy, but it's steady. I bought a modest little condo, adopted a cat I named Professor Nibbles. Don't judge me. I was a little high when I signed the adoption papers, and built a quiet, content life for myself. Jacob, meanwhile, bounced between jobs at startups with names like Blastcore and Nexify. He dated Instagram models, posted rooftop cocktail pics, and always seemed to be on the verge of making it big, though big never seemed to happen. But my parents? They ate up every word. Jacob's doing so well. Jacob just got promoted. Jacob's thinking about buying a vacation property. Yeah, that's easy to say when you're not sending $800 a month to cover someone else's bills. Funny how much disposable income you have when you're not bankrolling your parents. Then came the tipping point. 3 years ago, Dad had a health scare. Nothing life-threatening, but enough to land him in the hospital for a few days. Mom completely fell apart. I took time off work to handle everything. Hospital paperwork, insurance calls, even bringing Mom real food so she didn't have to live off cafeteria mush. Jacob sent flowers and made a single phone call. Because nothing says, "I care," like a $50 bouquet and a quick, "hope you're good," while scrolling Instagram. One night, I sat in Dad's hospital room while he slept. Mom had gone home to shower, and I was catching up on emails. Dad stirred and croaked out. "Jessica, where's Jacob?" "He's in Boston for work, Dad," I whispered. "He called earlier." Dad nodded, his eyes glassy. "He's doing so well, isn't he? Such a good son." I smiled and helped him sip some water. Whatever. He was on pain meds. Not the time to argue. After Dad recovered, my parents started talking about getting their affairs in order. At first, I thought it made sense. A health scare does that to people. Then the requests began. Can you help us set up automatic payments? Tech stuff confuses us, Dad said. This, from a man who worked as an electrical engineer for 3 decades. Can you cover the property tax this year? We're a little short, Mom asked. At first, it was small, $200 here for a high utility bill, $300 there for car repairs. But over time, the requests ballooned. A new water heater, a roof repair, a full kitchen remodel that went from just countertops to we need all new appliances and custom cabinets. Every time, it was just temporary or just this once. But it wasn't. I was basically bankrolling their retirement while clipping coupons and eating rice and beans to save for my own future. Meanwhile, Jacob kept swooping in for holidays, dropping expensive gifts and spinning tales about big projects at work. My parents would beam at him like he hung the moon. And me? I kept my mouth shut and kept paying. Maybe deep down, I was still hoping they'd notice. That they'd pause for a second and realize something felt off. That they'd ask if I was okay, if I needed anything. That, just once, they'd see me as a human being with feelings, not just some convenient ATM on 2 legs. Dinner that night went exactly how it always did, which is to say Jacob dominated the conversation, even though he wasn't even there. Dad mentioned how Jacob was thinking about investing in some cutting-edge tech startup. Mom chimed in with a proud little smile, saying Jacob had sent them a fancy gift basket from one of those high-end stores where even the cheapest crackers cost more than my entire weekly grocery bill. And then, while I was helping to clear the table, Mom turned to me and said, as casually as if she were asking me to pass the salt, "Oh, Jessica, the property tax bill came yesterday. It's $3,200 this year. Could you take care of it by Friday?" Just like that. No, please. No acknowledgement that she was asking me for over $3,000. No hint she'd even noticed that I'd been ignoring their payment requests for weeks. It was simply assumed that I'd pay it. Because that's what I do. That's my role. The reliable one. The wallet. "I can't this month," I said evenly, keeping my voice calm as I rinsed a plate. Mom froze mid-swipe, the sponge in her hand dripping onto the counter. "What do you mean you can't?" "I mean I can't," I repeated. "I've got my own money issues to deal with." And that wasn't even a lie. My money issue was the gaping hole in my savings account after years of funneling cash into their bills. Mom's face twisted, like she'd just bitten into a lemon. "Jessica, this is serious. It's the property tax. If we don't pay, there'll be penalties." I shrugged. I'm sure Jacob can help. He's doing so well these days. And with all his financial expertise. Her mouth opened and closed like she was trying to solve a particularly hard math problem in her head. "Jacob? But he doesn't. We don't ask Jacob for money." "Why not?" "Because he's busy. He has his own expenses, his own life. And I don't." Mom blinked at me, completely thrown, like I'd just started speaking fluent Klingon. "That's different. You're the responsible one. Responsible means I'm also responsible for paying your bills." She bristled. "We've helped you before, you know. Remember when you needed money for car repairs back in college? We sent it to you immediately. No questions asked." I actually laughed. I couldn't help it. "Mom, that was $800. 15 years ago. I've given you tens of thousands of dollars since then. It's not the same thing." Her voice went tight. "Oh, why not?" "I didn't realize you were keeping score." And just like that, I knew. I knew nothing was going to change. They didn't see any problem with how things were. They didn't understand why I'd pulled back. In their minds, this was the natural order of things. I pay. They take. Jacob inherits everything. The eternal circle of financial dysfunction. I dried my hands, slung my purse over my shoulder, and headed for the door. "But what about the property taxes?" Mom called after me. I glanced back just long enough to say, "Not my problem." And then I walked out. 3 weeks later, Mom called again. This time she invited me to lunch. "We need to talk about something important," she said. My heart actually skipped a beat. Was this it? Were they finally going to tell me about the will? Apologize? Maybe they'd realized how unfair they'd been. Heck, at this point I would have settled for them offering me a kidney, some token of recognition that I mattered. I showed up to the restaurant early, my stomach in knots. I tried to tamp down the flicker of hope rising in my chest. They arrived 20 minutes late, and Jacob was with them. We ordered. We chit-chat about the weather, Mom's garden, all the usual small talk. And then, once the food came, Mom cleared her throat. "Jessica, dear, We wanted to talk to you about the bills. We've noticed you haven't been keeping up with them lately. I waited. Surely this was the setup for the real conversation. The one where they'd finally acknowledge how much I'd done. Dad jumped in. We know times can be tough. If you're having financial difficulties, you should have told us. We're family. I almost choked on my water. They're talking to me about financial struggles? After I'd been the one supporting their lifestyle for years? The irony was so thick you could frost a cake with it. But I kept my face neutral. Actually, I'm fine. I'm just reassessing my budget. Translation: I'm moving my money from the bank of you to the republic of taking care of myself. Mom's shoulders relaxed. Oh good. So you'll cover the electricity bill this week? They're threatening to disconnect service. It's been 2 months. Jacob, who'd been silently sipping his iced tea, finally spoke up. It's important to stay on top of these things, Jess. Financial responsibility is key. I stared at him, then at my parents. Were they serious? Was I in some kind of hidden camera prank? Jacob leaned forward. I've been reviewing Mom and Dad's financial situation, and I'm concerned. Their retirement planning needs careful management. That's why I've stepped in to help and manage things. Manage things? I asked flatly. Does that include paying their bills? He hesitated for a second, his confidence cracking just a little. Well, no, not the day-to-day stuff. I'm focused on the big picture. Investments. Estate planning. The future. And that's when Mom casually dropped the bomb. Like she was commenting on the weather. Oh, and while we have you both here, we recently updated our will. Jacob will be handling everything when the time comes. With his financial expertise, he's just more suited to the task. We knew you'd understand, Jessica. You've always been so practical. They'd planned it all. I waited until we were in a public place. And just in case, I brought Jacob along as backup. Not that I expected them to apologize or even explain themselves. Deep down, I already knew this lunch wasn't about clearing the air. It was about making sure I kept footing their bills, even after they'd erased me from their future plans. This was their way of tightening the leash after I'd shown the first flicker of financial independence. I sat there, my fork halfway to my mouth, as it hit me all at once. I wasn't really their daughter, not in the way that mattered. I was a utility, a walking, talking debit card, a convenience service they'd subscribed to. I gently set my fork down, took a sip of water, and slid a $20 onto the table to cover my meal. I think I should go, I said softly, trying to keep my voice steady. But you've barely touched your food, Mom protested. For the first time in years, I really looked at her. Not as my mother, but as a person. And I realized, maybe for the first time, I wasn't hungry anymore. Not for food, and not for the scraps of affection they'd been tossing me all these years. As I stood, Dad called after me. So, about that electric bill. I turned just enough to toss back. I'm sure Jacob can handle it. He's got the financial expertise for that kind of thing. It felt amazing. Like I was finally handing back decades worth of emotional fruitcakes in one go. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I didn't fire off any dramatic texts later that night. I just walked out, went home, and sat at my laptop. And then, with the precision of a surgeon, I began to extract myself from their financial lives. I canceled every single automatic payment I'd set up, cut off every utility I'd been paying, removed myself from their HOA account, called their lawn service, and told them I would no longer be covering their monthly maintenance. One by one, I snipped every cord they'd tied to me. Each click of cancel felt like lifting a boulder off my chest. The strange thing? It felt good. Really good. Almost too good. Like I was finally taking back control after years of giving it away. When I was done, I blocked their numbers. Not forever, just for a week. I needed a little peace. A financial detox. At first, I felt weird. Lighter, but also heavier. I expected guilt to creep in, but instead I felt sad. Sad that the family I thought I had never really existed. Sad that I'd spent so many years trying to buy love that should have been free. When I unblocked their numbers, the flood started. Texts, calls. At first, they were confused, then concerned, then furious. But not worried about me, mind you. Oh no, they were worried about their bills. My favorite was Dad's. The internet's down. How am I supposed to watch YouTube? I don't know, Dad. Maybe try rubbing 2 sticks together and see if Netflix shows up. I didn't respond. What was there to say? Sorry, your human ATM grew a spine. 2 weeks passed. Then 3. I focused on myself for once. Started digging into my own finances, and was floored to see how much I'd been bleeding out to keep them afloat. Tens of thousands of dollars. Enough to buy a decent car, or make a down payment on a house. Or, if the boomers are right, enough to fund about 8,000 avocado toasts. I started therapy, joined a gym, booked a haircut at a real salon, not the kind that also trims dogs. Bought myself sheets with an actual thread count. Every little thing felt like rebellion. The texts from my parents kept coming. Mom oscillated between guilt trips, after all we've done for you, and passive-aggressive barbs. Dad was more blunt. This is unacceptable. You need to start paying these bills again. Then it came. The text I'd been waiting for. From Mom. The electricity's out. Did you forget to pay? No, we miss you. No, can we talk? Just pure assumption that I was still the one responsible for keeping the lights on. I stared at the message for a long time before typing back. No, I remembered exactly what you said. Then I turned off my phone and went to bed. I slept like a baby. The kind of deep, peaceful sleep you get after putting down a backpack full of rocks you've been hauling uphill for years. By morning, there were 37 missed calls and a voicemail from Dad ranting about family duty and how I was abandoning them. But here's the kicker. I knew they didn't have the cash to pay that electric bill. I knew their power was about to be shut off. And I let it happen. In fact, I drove by their house later that afternoon, parked across the street, and watched as the utility truck pulled up. The worker hopped out, did whatever they do at the meter, and just like that, the lights went out. Mom and Dad came outside, both on their phones, probably leaving me more frantic voicemails. Dad paced the driveway like a caged animal. Mom sat on the porch steps with her head in her hands. And me? I sat in my car sipping coffee, watching it all unfold. And I felt nothing. No guilt. No sadness. Just this deep, calm certainty that this was the natural consequence of their choices. They'd used me. They'd taken me for granted. Now they were learning what life was like without their personal ATM. Maybe I am the bad guy for letting them sit in the dark instead of swooping in to save the day again. Maybe I should have confronted them directly instead of cutting them off like this. But after years of being the reliable, responsible, self-sacrificing fixer, I'm exhausted, completely and utterly drained. There's only so many times you can let yourself be the family doormat before you finally decide to stop being stepped on. Jacob finally coughed up the money to get the lights back on, 3 days later. That's right. Mr. Financial Genius took 72 whole hours to figure out how to pay a utility bill. Apparently, all those PowerPoint slides didn't cover how to keep Mom from burning candles in the kitchen. Those 3 days were interesting. The calls and texts from my parents came in like clockwork. Dad even threatened to call the cops and accuse me of elder abuse. Mom swung between guilt tripping, "I can't believe you'd let your own parents suffer like this," and straight-up manipulation. "We might have to sell the house if you don't step up, Jessica." For the first time in my life, I didn't bite. I didn't explain. I didn't apologize. I just let them stew in the darkness they'd created for themselves. And you know what? I feel free.